All right, welcome. If you could join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I should note that the pledge, we're moving back to the reconvene in open session, just as a technicality. All right, any emergency additions, modifications to the agenda?
There are none.
All right,
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Approval of minutes?
We don't have any.
Yeah, I didn't think there were any.
It's just our placeholder that we still have those sections.
Yeah, okay. So I'll vote no. Public comments. Angie, do you want to wait till we get to the item? Great. Are there any other public comments, just generally? We're great, we're terrible? Okay.
Nice
We'll move on.
haircuts.
We can save those for later. So we'll move to item 5.1, public employee appointment, title superintendent. And the board is asked to consider the appointment of Dr. Tiffany Morse as superintendent of schools, effective July 1st, 2019. So I don't think there were any public comments on this item. Are there comments, questions, discussion items by the board?
Do we go public and now
Yeah, now it's us.
it's us?
Right.
Well, I just want to say I was super impressed with you, Tiffany, and I think you're going to be a great fit for our district, and I'm very happy. I think the team of Cheryl and Tiffany are going to be fabulous together, and very, very excited about the future. As much as we hate to see Andy go, I think we were all really happy and gratified that someone of your caliber was able to fill the spot, if we choose to appoint you. The lawyer in me added that.
Yeah, I don't know how much we say beforehand, or we wait for a motion and then we talk, but.
Well, no, I thought we'd talk about it and then we'd have a motion and then we'd vote and then we'd move to another topic.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in agreement that, we really looked at a lot of things, and there's so many different facets to your background that I think are important for Ojai. And for me personally, I was most touched, I guess is the word, by your talk about the fact that our district is a service industry, and that the students and the families are our clients, and that every choice we make is for their betterment. And I know you've had a lot of involvement in your community, and I'm looking forward to your involvement in our community.
Yeah, I guess I would say it was a very competitive field. We were very fortunate in that respect. I was a little concerned about that, but we actually saw some very strong candidates. And so I think, Tiffany, you're a slightly non-traditional superintendent path, but I think you'll bring some out-of-the-box thinking, which is something that we've been looking for, some energy, and I agree. I think you will merge and blend really well with Cheryl and your thoughts and ideas in terms of Cheryl's already pushing the boundaries, and now you'll push Cheryl while she pushes, and everybody will be pushing, and the boundaries will be gone within the first week. No, I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be really interesting. So congratulations. If we, like Kevin said.
I always forget to prepare my speeches ahead of time, but I'm very much looking forward to having you part of the community. I will concur with everyone else that it was a competitive field, and we come from a non-traditional superintendent background, having Andy there already, and so we're looking forward to it. Welcome.
I guess I concur with everyone. What I would add, and I think it was kind of mentioned, but I think this is, we're a team. And I think that it really does take strong team members doing their part to create excellence. And I think we do have excellent people. I think, Cheryl has been doing some amazing work. I look forward to, I think what the public maybe needs to know, because I don't know how much it's going to be talked about, but Tiffany's coming from creating an amazing program at the county level that required an enormous amount of outreach, fundraising, organization, and leadership. And we're looking forward to you bringing that to Ojai. And I think everybody working together, we can go places that we've never been before. I hope, when you're taking a trip, you don't always want to go back to places you've been before, although sometimes you've been to really great places and you want to go back. But I think that, we really look forward to your leadership and working with you. So, thank you. So on the motion, do we have?
I'll move to approve Dr. Tiffany Morse as superintendent of schools.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. So welcome. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, would you like to say a few things?
Sure.
Now, while you're
Yeah.
coming up, I should note that this is all subject to successful negotiation with our negotiator.
Yes. Well, I will be quick because I'm sure that we will have many, many hours together in this room. So this will just be our first few minutes. But I want to say I'm really humbled by the opportunity to serve the community. I'm looking forward to moving to the community. My husband and I have been out last few weekends touring around houses. We're so excited to be part of the community and really excited to serve the students and the families that live here. Thank you.
Could you introduce your husband to us?
Yes, this is Dr. Tom McCoy. He's the Assistant Superintendent of Oxnard Union High School District. And
I'm Mr. Tom Morse.
and he had to take the night off from assistant superintendenting. He had whatever other meetings to do, but he came here tonight to be part of this. So.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Wonderful. Moving to item 5.2, appointment of designated labor negotiator. So we're all excited about moving forward, but there are details to work out. So just reading this item, the board is asked to appoint Andrew Cantwell to serve as the designated labor negotiator for negotiations with the newly appointed superintendent concerning her contract, if the appointment is approved in 5.1, which it was. So any comments, or do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. So you have some discussions to have.
We'll be in touch.
Great.
Continue to be.
All right. So now.
For anyone
yeah.
who's not here out of excitement for the HVAC, certainly feel free to.
We're installing it after this,
Feel free for those who have homework tonight if you need to head out.
Oh, you're getting emails from.
All
Sorry,
right.
go ahead.
No, that's great. All right. That's good. We thought that either the first item or the last item might bring the most comment, but it's the middle one.
No idea.
All right. So
Sparing you.
we are asked to approve the HVAC contract for Mantillaha Junior High School. Any comments, or do I have a motion?
I'm going to shut this down.
Let me make a few calls.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Appears to
Wonderful.
be much
They
needed
said
and
it
well
takes
spent.
2 to 3 days to order the equipment, and then they're going to install it right away. So
We'll
we're
have an
talking
installation ceremony.
like end of this week, next week, finally.
And-
Year and a half in the making.
And we did arrange for the next few days to cool off a little bit.
Appreciate that.
So item 7.1, this is regarding our intent to establish areas and elections by trustee areas. We do have one public comment, Angie Janassi.
Hi, I'm Angie Janassi, OFT president. I'm actually not speaking right now on behalf of the Ojai Federation of Teachers. I'm just speaking personally. I understand your reasons why you feel that you need to redistrict or do the, I don't even know how to say what it is, you know what I mean? Redistricting. But I have some concerns. Some of them were alleviated in looking at the public comment, opportunities for public comment. But one, I'm just concerned that we're not going to get people who, if you're limited to a certain area, it concerns me that we are not going to get people who want to be on the school board. I think it's difficult to find people who want to be involved in anything. And then certainly in this position, you're in the hot seat a lot and making big decisions for a lot of people. And I don't know that people want to necessarily be in this position. By limiting your ability to pull people from certain areas, it's a great concern to me. What was alleviated is that the public can look at and submit maps for the redistricting. Is that right?
That's right.
And well, you can't tell me, but I would really hope that we get it out there to the public, that they can do that. I certainly will be submitting my own map and talking to the teachers, the union about it, because I just get concerned. That's all. I'm just really worried that what we're going to get is maybe one person who always wants to be on the school board. So, which isn't enough of a pull and enough, it's just not. It's not.
You're not getting a choice. At that
Yeah,
point.
you're not getting a choice. Thank you for helping me finish saying what I want to say. So that's all. So,
Thank you.
Angie,
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to say that I hate this idea.
Mhm.
And well, more than one of us hate this idea.
Yes.
And I think because we are such.
That's why I interrupted, because I wanted to say that, I think it's a terrible idea.
Because we're such a small district.
Right.
And you're right, whether someone won't run or you actually don't get the best candidate just because they happen to live in the right area,
Mhm.
and the candidate across town would be a better representative of what you believe in.
Right.
You won't have a choice. You will only be able to vote for the person in your district. Now, one of the reasons we did this, obviously, was financial, for the district, because there's people
Yes.
going around just suing districts who aren't doing this.
Mhm.
And there are districts who have fought it and lost. I don't know if there's ever been a district where the community has come forward and said, we don't want you to do this.
Well, when you're speaking, that's the other issue that came to my mind, is that when we've had this conversation, Andy and I and Cheryl and I have had this conversation many times about schools thinking of only their school, right? And teachers being focused on Topa or Summit or San Antonio, whatever that area is. And I really felt concerned when I saw this, that you're going to get people who want to be on the school board so that they can affect change only in their school, and not have that open mind like you all have of the whole district and every school and all of those students. And I feel like we already do that in Ojai. We already have the East End, we have Miners Oaks, we have Miramani, we have downtown, we have Upper Ojai. We have all of our little areas. This is our spot. And so I get concerned that if we get somebody from the East End, they're going to be focused only on San Antonio. If we separate it out. So in terms of looking at that map, I think it's really important that we however we do it, we try to broaden the areas into other.
I wonder if you can do a polka dot map. A pocket here and a pocket on
Well,
the east end and a pocket on
I
the
think-
west end, and they all are in the same district.
I think it's important that we
It's-
include people from one school districting area to another school districting area so that it widens the field. That's my greatest concern.
Well, and you also, if one of the, is at East End, you have people on the East End who are attending Nordoff and Matilah. So if their representative is only focusing on that end of town, they might not be, that there is that balance and that concern.
Yeah, but and I would argue demographically it's an issue as well.
Right.
And it's supposed to be solving an issue, and in our district, it's creating an issue. The idea, I think, behind the law is so that any one demographic who usually lives in the same area has a greater voice. And in our district, that is not the case with our demographics. We're actually diluting our minority voices through this.
Well, I just saw or listened to NPR, and they were having the exact same issue in one of the cities in like Santa Monica or somewhere like that.
Monica fought it.
Just having that same issue, so
Yeah.
we're not the only ones, but that was just, those are my concerns.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I did this wrong. We should have opened our public hearing and then had a discussion, but
Well, good, now I don't feel bad, because I was talking when I wasn't supposed to.
no, you're doing great. But why don't, I think that we probably do have more to say, but,
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, you wanna open.
Do we want to open it?
yeah, why don't
Is
we
there
open the
comment?
public hearing? So is there a motion?
I'll move,
Go ahead.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Could you repeat that?
And
Are
then
there-
I wouldn't be breaking the rules.
I think that we may have more to say, but any other comments from the public on the election districts? Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that was also unanimous.
Do you want me to give my presentation now? So we're having some IT difficulty. Catherine or any other person who's more technologically savvy than me, do you guys know how to make this work? Javi?
Javi does.
The tech team came in, and I've got the remote here.
It's showing no signal, so it
Right, it
seems
says
like
no
it's-
signal. The projector's on, but there must be an
So it's
issue
not
of
connected.
connection.
That's just
That should just be turning the.
Did you change the
Are the batteries?
Here's the remote. That's what we have to do.
Oh,
one is connected to the source. It's this one right here. That's definitely not the SD.
Tiffany, you'll get used to this. He's the Matilah principal, also our IT guy.
I was gonna be prepared. I think we got it.
That's the right input. Though.
But it's not on the screen.
Definitely the right input.
yeah, no, it's been on the screen on the computer. It's that's not transmitting. Anyway, it was a really good PowerPoint. Really top
Best
notch.
one since you've been here.
Yeah. So I do have a copy here. I'll read, and hopefully we'll get this thing working at some point. So I think that we've talked, LT, a few different points about this topic, and obviously the board's already mentioned, but just to make sure for everyone in the audience to understand, there are three types of elections that a district can potentially have, district or municipality, when it comes to electing their representatives. There's an at-large election, which is what we currently have, meaning that we have an entire boundary in which this district serves, and potential candidates can come from anywhere within that boundary. And depending on the number of seats up for election, that many seats or that many votes, any member of our community is able to. Hey, there we go. Nice work.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Javier.
I am the
That was
IT.
all.
Thank you. And and this is even working too. So, real quickly, just so you guys know, we've hired Cooperative Strategies as our demographer. They're the leading demographer in the state. They did a presentation for San Paula in our own Ojai way of trying to save money. I said, don't come here, just give me the San Paula PowerPoint and I'll make a few changes and use it for us. But we're saving by not having them here. Normally they would be present, but we're having them come out when they present their actual first draft of map proposal. So instead of coming out for 3 or 4 trips, coming out for the one that we felt was most important.
We have to hire an outside. is
Yeah,
that something that-
yeah, you need to have a demographer who's looking at the community. So that's who we're using. Again, there's 3 types of elections at large. What we currently have, there's also, and Shelley, you brought this one up in the past, the from trustee area elections. This middle one is where you have identified trustee areas, but then the entire community is able to vote on each candidate. So you might have 3 seats up. That's just for now. Call it a Miramani seat, a Myers Oak seat, and an East End seat. But people from all of the OUSD boundaries who are able to vote would vote for all 3 seats. So you're not restricted to only vote for the candidate who covers your area, but the candidates must come from a particular area and they're running in that individual area. And then there's the by trust, and isn't that one that you
That is
kind of
what I brought up, and I would, are districts who already do that being dinged by this law?
Yes, so
Okay.
the by trustee area elections is the only one, and you can see in bold at the very bottom of this page, this method of election is the only method that's safe from challenge under the Voting Rights Act. So the by trustee area means that you identify trustee areas within the boundaries of our district, and that a candidate must come from that area, and the only people who vote for that candidate must also reside within that same area. So again, theoretically, if we called it something like a Miramani area, then there'd be candidates who'd be running against only those other candidates from that that trustee area, and it'd only be the 1,000 or so households in that area that would vote for that trustee member.
Do they have to have a certain percentage?
Do they have to have a certain
Like,
percentage? What?
a certain percentage of people having actually voted for the winning candidate, or is it just?
It's going to be a majority of the voting of those who voted. So if they only had 100 people vote in a particular district, then whoever had the greatest number.
Will they have a, none of the, I mean, you know, could you add, like, what if there's one choice and they don't want that choice? Like, can there be isn't there?
There's a
something-
write-in possibility, but if you're not doing a write-in candidate, then even the person who had 10 affirmative votes and 100 protest no votes, they still would have they would still be elected.
So it's not a majority, right? It's
Right,
it's
exactly.
just
Thanks
the-
for correcting
the
that. It's not a
highest
majority, it's the
number.
highest vote getter. Anyway, the Voting Rights Act, that word that's at the very bottom sentence, that's what's driving all of this. The Voting Rights Act took effect in January 1 of 2003. It prohibits the use of at-large elections when such an election system impairs the ability of a protected class to elect candidates of its choice or its ability to influence the outcome of an election.
So Andy,
Yeah.
does there need to be any kind of factual finding that that's occurring to require districting?
So, again, what we can look to is the municipalities or agencies that have challenged this. Angie, you brought up Santa Monica. So many entities have challenged this law and saying they didn't want to go to these trustee areas, or again, for a municipality, a city council area. And they challenged it on the grounds of saying that we don't actually see this taking place for our community. Now, the first number of cities and districts that challenged it were coming from, it was a pretty clear case of where you could demonstrate that this was happening. I mean, it was coming from areas where the overall population was maybe 48% Caucasian, 47% Latino, and 5% other. And so, but they only were having Caucasian candidates elected. And so you were able to see that if you actually isolated the area of where the minority population resided, that if you actually looked at their voting pattern, they would have voted, if they had been able to influence the outcome of the election, they would have been voting for a different candidate. Or they did vote for a different candidate who wasn't able to get enough votes.
Right.
So all of those lost. And so Santa Monica became the municipality that challenged this law, who actually had a strong case, one similar to ours, of saying, not only do we not see this actually happening, but also the racial makeup of our community is sufficiently distributed, or it's not centrally located within a single area of the community, where if you were to be able to district, then that area now has the ability to have their
Majority
candidate.
minority, right.
Exactly. So Santa Monica really thought they were in a strong position to challenge this. Again, perhaps stronger than we would be in. They've spent more than $250,000 and they've lost. It came out just in the past couple of months that they lost. So there's yet to be a entity that has challenged this law and succeeded. Now, any entity that receives a demand letter, as Jane was mentioning, that there are law firms out there right now who are sending demand letters to initiate this process. The law allows, and that this just happened a couple of years ago, the law changed to try to encourage this to, elected bodies to move this direction. Once you receive a letter, the law allows for up to $30,000 of legal costs to be recouped by the firm that writes the letter. Now, it's up to $30,000, and somehow, coincidentally, they always happen to have $30,000 or so of expenses. And so there have been entities throughout Ventura County who have received letters already, and I believe actually the city of Ojai did receive a letter. There were a number of school districts in our county that have received them. And so again, once they've received the letter, even if they end up arriving at the same outcome in the end, they still are going to at minimum be hit with the $30,000 or up to $30,000 of a legal fee cost for that letter being written.
And that's for every letter. So if you just refuse to do this, there could be a dozen law firms that write a letter over time.
Well, no, if you refuse, no, then you wouldn't be capped. The $30,000 is just a safe harbor provision to cap your losses if you end up doing what they want. If you don't actually initiate the process once you've received the letter, then you're no longer in that safe harbor, and you could end up incurring hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal costs to fight just that single firm. It wouldn't even have to come from multiple. And again, Santa Monica is a good example of an entity that chose to fight it, and they racked up six-figure legal costs to then still have the same outcome of having to go this direction. So that's the reason that we're looking at this. It's not that when the board passed their resolution at the March board meeting, there was not a strong consensus of this board that this change would actually effectuate the change which the law was intended to. And instead, we are doing this primarily because we're seeking to avoid incurring costs to this district. That's really what. Again, I think that this board feels strongly that if we felt this would be effective and actually the goal in which the statute was set up for, that there would be a lot more support. But we don't believe that in our community that this is actually going to, again, create the solution that it's intended to. So what we do is, again, we're going to have two public hearings. This was the first of two. The next one's going to be next week, April 17th, our regularly scheduled board meeting for the month of April. Another opportunity for the public to come hear a similar presentation, as well as to give feedback to the demographer for them to create their proposed district trustee areas. Our demographer is going to be watching this recorded session as well as the next one and getting our minutes and feedback, taking that information into account to then, over the next 2 weeks, actually create their two proposals, two options, along with other ones that the community might submit. And then that has to be publicly circulated in the community for at least 10 days. So we're going to be doing that into this month. And then we will have our next meeting, our May regularly scheduled meeting, will be the first of two public hearings that we'll hold to actually discuss the proposals themselves. And then in June 6th is when at that regular meeting it'd be our second public hearing and presumably an opportunity for you guys to vote on these trustee areas, which would take effect for the November of 20 election. Okay?
Can I ask a question? Does it?
Yes,
Does it?
you
Ben,
may.
Can I ask a
Yes, you may.
does it affect you guys? Okay, so, but how does that work?
Potentially.
If
Well, it
you're-
won't affect us until November of 20.
But,
And
but
until
so
we're,
many of you live in, like,
In the
at
same
least-
area.
At least three of you live in the same area.
Well, so those are the factors that the demographer will take into account when they're presenting proposals. But to give you an example, Ventura Unified, when they just made this transition last election, 2018's election was the first year in which these new trustee areas took effect. and they had 2 trustees who reside within the same, or I'm sorry, it wasn't 2 trustees in the same area. They had 3 trustees who were up for election, but one of them was no longer eligible to seek election because current sitting member was already covering her area. So that was why Mary Hafner did not have the opportunity to even run for an office, because her seat was, she was districted out of her seat.
So that would be me,
Well,
because Jane and I live,
we'll see, we'll see.
depending on
Depends
how
where the
map
lines
So
are.
on that topic, let's talk about some of the considerations for the trustee areas. So each area shall contain nearly equal number of inhabitants. So again, this is not at all based on the number of families who attend our district. As you guys know, we have the lowest percentage of residents who have school-age children attending OUSD schools that reside within the Ojai Valley. We have the lowest ratio or lowest percentage of families who have kids in our district of any school district in the county. So we have a much lower percentage of, families who have kids in the district. So they don't look at kids in our district or the size of schools or anything like that. They're actually looking at the voting population within our community. They are, of course, drawn to comply with federal voting rights. They are try to make them as compact and contiguous as much as possible, so they're not going to do a polka dotted plan.
I think it's genius.
As much as possible, so it's not ruled out entirely.
So, they really do try, and this is one of the reasons they have multiple public hearings. They're trying to respect communities of interest as much as possible, and also follow man-made natural geographic features as much as possible. And so they don't just want a demographer who's, staying at his desk, who's looking at a, Google Earth and then overlaying it with the voting population and then, slicing it up. They really do try to take into account things like where are the current school boundaries for our district, where are natural boundaries, perhaps Grand Avenue or Ojai Avenue, the 33, the one, they're going to be looking at those sorts of things that naturally feel like different parts of our community. Again, if you are only looking at an overlay, it's not that easy to tell where Miramani ends and Myers Oaks begins. But they will, they want to hear the way in which the community perceives that issue, and as Andrew said, the extent to which we should be trying to separate out those areas or actually have them come together. So they will try to respect incumbency if possible, but again, oftentimes that's not a possibility. And then they take into account, school boundaries, other things. So when we have these public hearings, again, if anyone after hearing this presentation desires to speak, feel free. Otherwise, we'll wait till next meeting. But types of things that one may say at the public hearing, I'd like to keep neighborhood X and neighborhood Y in the same trustee area. I'd like to see, the Summit and San Antonio school boundaries to be, one trustee area, have Topa another one, and Myers Oaks and Miramani get split to be 3 between 2 of them, or something like that. They might say, I think that, the 150 or the 33, you can see this is San Paul, as I meant to change the 126 to 33, but apparently I, in this version, didn't. I think that, the 150 should be a natural dividing line for the trustee areas, or again, the 33 at the Y should separate out, one trustee area from another. And then they can give a rationale, it makes sense because, for whatever reason. So that's what we're soliciting public engagement on. Austin's here, and hopefully you did a nice job with your last article on this topic, and hopefully we'll continue to try to get the word out to the community through the OVN. We also have our communications director here with Linda Jordan, who will also make sure that we get it out through Facebook and other channels to invite community engagement on this topic. What's that?
Frantically trying to figure out the boundaries to keep all of you guys.
So again, this is just examples of ways in which public feedback can be offered and how the demographer will use that when they're trying to draw up the best balance of the competing perspectives. That was their question. So the last thing I'll just do is to, again, draw your attention to the calendar that you have, pages 2 and 3 of the agenda packet. As we've said, this is our first public hearing. We're going to hold another public hearing 9 days from now on April 17th. Between April 17th and our regularly scheduled board meeting in May, the demographer will be doing his work and presenting these proposals. Now, remember, we went through a waiver process with the state when it came to seeking a waiver from the bid process for this property to be able to do RFPs. If you remember, we did have to actually go to the state and seek that waiver, and as part of that process, I had to sit down with Angie and with Chuck, with both unions. We had to reconvene the 7-Eleven committee and ask for them to, we had to engage various stakeholder groups to get their feedback, so that way when we filled out our application, we could say we did talk to CSEA, we did talk to OFT, that sort of thing. So we actually are going to have to seek a waiver again from the state. This time it's a waiver from, normally if you were going to be making a change like this, you actually have to send it out to the community for a vote. The community would be the one that would vote on the trust, on designating themselves as trustee areas. Kind of like city went through the process of voting on the mayor, whether or not to have one and whether or not to be a 2 or 4 year. That's the common practice. Now the issue is, and this is where again this law is so perverse, even if you actually went out to the community and said, do you guys want this? And the community said, absolutely not, really no. That would only end up being used as a tool in the lawsuit against us that we are, we are not allowing for minority populations or other protected classes to have their voice adequately heard. So all the districts that are going through this process are seeking the waiver rather than going out to the voting public, because there's very little that comes positive from that vote, because you will often, if it's a no vote, have to just go through this process anyway. And it's obviously costly each time you have an election.
So the vote is just a yes or no vote, not voting on districts on a map. Is that what you're saying? Or on 2 different maps, which map we should go with? We're not offering that choice to the public. It would be offering a yes or no vote on whether we should do it or not.
Well, there could potentially be multiple votes of if we were going to be having this go out to the entire voting population at a special election or at the next regular election. There could potentially be multiple questions, but again, we wouldn't be pursuing that process. Instead, it's going to be coming to you guys for a vote. But we still have to go through a waiver process. So the calendar that we've outlined, we by June 6th will have everything that we need done for you guys to make a decision. If you ultimately make a decision, it will be at that meeting to make a change. We still aren't done with the process, though. We have to get that waiver, which we're going to start. We're going to do everything that we need to do to get that waiver before June 6th, including engaging various stakeholder groups in the community. And then it goes up to the state, and that's where you'll see it, and also to the county. You'll see August, November, January, and so on, as far as the additional steps that we have to actually get the State Board of Education to approve a waiver. We're anticipating that being in November. We would communicate with the Registrar of Voters in January, and then again, this all becomes effective in time for the November 2020 election.
So why wouldn't we do something where the community is voting rather than we are voting on the maps?
So for a couple of reasons. Again, the first one that many districts choose not to do it that way is because of the cost. So when we have an election at the same time as a major election, it's
So
about
we couldn't wait.
it's about $10,000, right? But because we'd have to do it sooner, or we expose ourselves to liability under this act, it can be $20,000 to $30,000 easily. Well, again, right now we're in a safe harbor period because we've initiated this process. If we end up ceasing the process and instead said that we're going to go out in 2020 for a vote, then we could be exposing ourselves to receiving that demand letter. And once we get the demand letter, we must do it within 90 days.
Okay, that's.
Yep.
And there's a time limit on our safe harbor status.
Right, 90 days.
Right.
And then if I understood you correctly, regardless of what the public votes, practically speaking, we're gonna have to do it anyway.
Well, again, practically speaking, the community's vote would not be sufficient grounds for us to defend not taking action.
Right.
So we'd still have to decide whether or not we want to fight it, but the community's vote would not be again sufficient for us to prove that it was not necessary to make a change.
We really need community input on this map, so
That's
that
right.
that they really feel that it represents them.
That's
so
right.
That we don't have those issues.
That's right. So again, we posted this to social media. We have it on our website. The last thing in these materials is the notice of public hearing, which we held tonight. But again, we also have identified here, and we're trying to get the word out that we will have our next public hearing April 17th. And once again, that's only the second among 4, but the latter 2 are going to be after we actually have some concepts before us.
Can you reach out to the group, the Ojai Education Diversity Equality?
The Alliance? Yes, absolutely.
Well, and I would like to know what the possibility is of when we have when we winnowed it down to a couple of map options, taking it to the schools and having meetings on campus. Instead of asking people to come here, which people are so reluctant to do, I think we need to go there to get input.
Okay, so that's my.
I
The
would
PowerPoint
like to
was
say-
much better
yeah.
before you guys were able to see it.
Yeah, it was,
Well,
it was
this
weird
isn't
when,
the-
when we hadn't seen it. You made it seem way better.
Well, this isn't the one you were going to.
No, right, that's right. That one still is stuck somewhere back there.
I just want to say that we were just happened to be talking today about how when Thane first got on the board, it was a result of a special. Steve Fields had left, and the current constituted school board had chosen a new board member, and the group of people that put themselves forward to be school board members was incredible. I mean, there were just a lot of really talented people that came forward. I mean, there must have been 20 something people.
I think it was close to 20.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic.
Yeah, and so I have to say, just, it feels to me like this is something we're going to have to do. And I just want to say that I do think there's also the possibility that people who never thought of running for school board, who are now in a special district, might come forward, and it might actually work out better than we think. So,
And
cause for optimism.
would argue that we lack diversity on our board,
Right.
and we lack a West End person representative. So I concur that fingers crossed that happens. That fingers crossed we don't
Yeah,
end up with
Yeah.
the one candidate.
I do, I think a really perverse aspect of it, though, of course, is, as you brought up, Angie, which is we happen to have this diverse geography of schools, and now all of a sudden you are elected by a constituency of people who have a school that now your constituents are presumably somewhat focused on their own school. And so it's, how do you do your job as a fiduciary for the district while at the same time serving the needs of your constituents who are specific to some particular place? That's a complicated thing.
Though I have to say, when I first joined the board, there was supposedly, we were adopted by schools. Like I got, Topa said, oh, we adopted you as our representative, or something. Maybe it was Miners Oaks. It was Miners Oaks said, and I was like, what? What does that mean? What? So
I was never adopted into
I know, it never happened. So I think maybe it happened before us. Thane, did it happen before?
Well, it actually went the other way around, that as board members, we chose a school that
Okay.
we would, yeah.
Yeah.
And so but we were looking out specifically for the interests of that school, not at the expense of other schools, just to be aware of what was going on that campus.
And I think it was sort of like you can't go to every concert and every, so it's sort of
Right.
like this, if I have one school that I can sort of say, I'll go to their promotion because they're all at 9 or 9:30, we've all
Right.
had those crazy mornings where we try to go to 5 promotions.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
It'll make that a lot easier.
That's right.
Well,
One
and
school.
I even contemplated okay, we're a board of 5, but what if we became a board of 7 and split the district up even smaller? Is there a benefit to 2 people? But yeah.
Or a board of 1.
Or
And then we could have an at-large election.
yeah. There
well,
you
it's
go.
difficult because of where our schools are. It's really, you think naturally in terms of the schools, that if you have 5 representatives and whatever the 7-Eleven committee comes up with Summit, and then you have your middle school and your high school are very close together. So are they in one? It's tricky, but.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate the optimism, but personally, I don't see any good that can come from this in our valley. But I don't see how we can not do it, because we'll be under constant threat of litigation forever. Unless the state changes the law, and I doubt they will. I just think it's a stupid state law. And but it's not the first stupid thing that the state has done that we have to follow, you know? If that were the case, it would be a completely different issue, right? But, you know, it's just one of many. So if somebody has a genius idea, hey, I'm open. I just don't see any way out of this. So I think we need to make the best of it and try to do the best we can to get, you know, the best areas we can, and try to get the best board members that we can going forward.
Yeah, it does feel like a solution in search of a problem, but I kind of have to go with Kevin. There may be some unanticipated beneficial effects. Quite frankly, I decided to run when there was nobody else running. Of course, then there was a million people running after that. But I
You're
probably
a natural leader, we all follow.
That's it. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have done it actually if there were lots of people already running. So sometimes the vacuum itself can create the opportunities. So I think it's worth hoping.
Once we're finished, then I'll hope. All right, anything else on this topic? All right, it's been wonderful to be with you this evening. Less than an hour. We will adjourn until next time.